If your guitars sound squashed, lifeless, or just off, chances are you're making one of these common compression mistakes on your guitars. I'm gonna show you exactly what that is and how to fix it. And it's not like just beginner mixers make these mistakes. Pro mixers make them as well. And if you want a little bit extra help learning how to dial in compression on all the different instruments out there, I have a free download in the description. It's my Compression 101 ebook, and it breaks down compression so that anybody can understand it. So make sure you go and grab your free copy. All right, so the song that we have today has both really heavy down-tuned guitars that are distorted and also clean. So let me just show you the guitar tones we're working with. And for the clean guitars. So these really clean ambient sounding guitars are going to have a much different approach for compression than what we're going to do for the heavy distorted guitars. So let's start with the distorted guitars because I think a lot of people get this all screwed up. In most circumstances, distorted guitars really don't need a lot of compression. The only time you really want to use compression on a really heavy guitar is if you're trying to glue them to each other or glue them to like the bass guitar. Distorted guitars, by their very nature, are already really, really compressed. A lot of times when you look at the guitars, you're looking at like the guitar DI. So our guitar tracks look really dynamic, but really they're just the DI tracks. But then once we feed them through our amp sim or record them with a real amp, it sounds like this. It's very distorted. If you actually print it to see what the file looks like afterwards, it looks like this. A giant square sausage thing. Compressing it isn't really going to achieve too much, and sometimes you don't set up your compressor right, it actually does a lot more harm than good. For this example, I'm just going to take these two guitar tracks and feed it to a guitar bus. Sounds like that. These guitars are a little on the dark sounding side, so I probably would come in here and scoop out like 130 hertz out of them. Just to try to tighten them up. But for this example, I want to leave all those frequencies in there. Now, it's really important, before you put on a compressor, you have to know why you're putting the compressor on your guitars. If the goal is to add more glue, that's a pretty good reason to put something on the distorted guitar bus. So a lot of times when people want to add glue, they'll use like an optical style compressor, usually something like an LA2A or an LA3A is really popular. Now, these look very similar. They have like the same type of knobs, but they have very different sound. If we were to use something like an LA2A, when it's on, it has this really strange movement to the guitars. It's not really musical. It's not enhancing like the power of the guitars. It just kind of sounds like weird and uncontrolled and flubby back and forth. And that's the problem with some types of compressors. They are more reactive to the low end of the guitars. So you have two options. One is that you can EQ a bunch of that crap out, or the other is to find one of these compressors that allows you to adjust the sidechain and remove those low frequencies from the compression circuit. Basically, this is acting like a high-pass filter. Okay, so it's not actually changing the EQ of our guitars, it's changing the EQ of the signal that's being sent to the compressor. So that'll allow us to kind of ignore that low end of the guitars so that it's not quite so pumpy and weird. So this is without anything. It's still a little pumpy, but if we didn't have that at all, and we just have a flat signal feeding the compressor, it's just so pumpy. That's a good indication that maybe this is the wrong compressor for these distorted guitars. Let's try an LA3A. It's already more consistent. It doesn't have that crazy pumping thing. It just sounds nice and full and in your face. So I'd actually roll off some of the low end again to try to smooth out the pumping. this compressor is actually tightening up the mid-range and making those guitars feel really locked in together. So this is an example of a compressor that actually sounds pretty good. Now, if the goal is not to glue the guitar performance, but rather just kind of constrain it and then maybe add a little bit of presence or grit to it, a really good compressor choice is an 1176. Here's one by Waves that I really like. We need to be very careful using these FET style compressors. They are known for devouring transients, which basically is code name for suck all the life out of your guitars. So the secret to avoid that is to actually have the attack setting close to 1. 1 means slow attack for this style of compressor. Okay. 7 is actually faster than 1. So it's something to keep in mind because it's kind of backwards from how we think of compressors in general. For distorted guitars, I like a fast release, but you can dial this back and it will just kind of help to add a little bit more glue to the tracks overall. Dial it to taste, listen to your sweet spot, but think of the release knob on 1176 as glue and the attack as a life, okay? If you want life in your guitars, 1 is the answer. If you want to suck everything out, then 7 is the answer. You hear how the initial pick attack of every single downstroke is just kind of exactly the same. Nothing has any punch to it anymore. It's because our attack time is too fast. So let's dial it back and listen how the guitars will actually open up and start sounding wider than before. Smashed. Live. Something to also watch out for is this release knob. If you start slowing it down, it's going to get pumpy, kind of like the LA2A that I just showed. Keep it fast for distorted guitars. I think that's going to be your best bet. And if you still think it's controlling the guitars too much, if you have the luxury of a mix knob, you can dial it back, and that basically is going to put this compressor as a parallel process, meaning you're going to get some of that original guitar tone to come through, so it's going to retain a little bit more dynamics, and then you're going to get the bonus grit or the aggression of the compressor layered on top. Right around 80% sounded like the best of both worlds to me. Now, if all those compressors look all crazy and they're confusing, probably the simplest guitar plugin you can use for compression is this Renaissance Axe or AXX plugin. I'm finding it sounds really, really good on a guitar bus, and it's super easy to dial in. The compression is really chill, so it just kind of helps to glue everything together. And then we have just one knob to mess with the attack to kind of dial in that initial pick attack and the punch. So let me show you how easy it is to dial this in and really glue those guitars together. Like, those guitars just sound locked in right now. Our attack is at 0, which means it's like super fast. So let's open this up to let the pick attack come in and add some punch back. You might also notice that when the attack is opened up to like 50, you're getting a little bit more of the high end. That's a really nice texture to have to add clarity back to those guitars. So find a sweet spot where you're getting the articulation from the downstroke and then the glue and the solidness of the performance from the compression. And for me, it's like right around here. Let's switch gears and look at clean guitars. So why would anybody want to compress clean guitars? One is that the performance is way too dynamic and you need to rein it in so it's consistent throughout the song and doesn't jump out or poke out of the mix. And the other is to glue and then bring out the ambience and the space of the guitar performance. There's actually a third one, which is you can kind of enhance the transient of the clean guitar to give it a little bit more of a percussive sound to it. Funny enough, one of my favorite compressors to use on clean guitars is what I liked the least on the distorted guitars. I love the sound of this Waves LA2A plugin on a clean guitar. It just has the right amount of attack to not make it necessarily pumpy, but add that percussiveness to the clean guitars. With So listen to the initial sound, right? The initial transient. It sounds way more percussive, almost bell-like when we have the compressor on there. And then without the compressor, it kind of sounds lifeless. So that helps to bring it out of the mix while also simultaneously controlling the performance. The other thing that these compressors are really great for on a clean guitar is, like I said, to bring out the room or the space in the mix. Now, I want you to focus on the tail end where there's those delays happening and notice how you're bringing up a bigger sense of space out of the guitar track by using a compressor versus when we don't use a compressor. Here we go. Now listen to the tails again. It just decays a lot faster than when we use this compressor on that track. Now I want to share one more tip, and this is kind of like a free bonus. But if you're putting a compressor on your guitar bus to try to glue everything together, but you want to make sure that your guitar sound as wide as possible, I have a cool trick to show you. When you're picking your compressor, try to find a compressor that has the ability to unlink the left and right channels. When you unlink a compressor, you're basically taking a compressor and putting it on the left channel and taking a compressor and putting it on the right channel. They're listening to the left and right sides independently. This is really useful because you're not going to get compression happening if your timing is a little bit off, if one of the guitar tones is a little bit bassier than the other. Okay, they're going to react independently on the left and right side. It gives it a sense of width that isn't there if you have them linked together. And this is probably easiest to hear on distorted guitars. We'll start with it linked. Here we go. Isn't that nuts? It's crazy. Now, let me explain the downside and why some people say it's a bad idea to do this. Technically speaking, if you compress both the left and right channels together, anytime there's a loud sound and your compressor's working, it's going to lower the volume on both the left and right sides equally. If you have both left and right sides lowering and raising the same amount, your stereo image is going to feel more consistent. However, if you have them working independently from each other, you might get moments, short, brief moments in time where the left or right side will decrease unevenly from the other side. That technically will actually shift the stereo image like back and forth, left and right. That's just the physics of how our brain works. However, I don't think it's very noticeable in the context of an entire song or if it's done tastefully like I showed in this video. I've never personally been distracted by a stereo image shifting left and right because I've unlinked a compressor, and none of the bands or artists I've worked with have ever complained about it or even noticed it. Actually, the only thing they notice is that the guitar sounds super wide and they get really excited about that. So let me know what you thought about these common compressor mistakes that a lot of people are making. Are you guilty of any of these? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to say thank you for these helpful tutorials, you can always join the membership below. It's a few dollars a month, and I give you access to a lot of cool free downloads and behind-the-scenes footage. Anytime you make a comment, I'll see that cool little logo by your name, and it'll make me so happy. So happy inside. Don't forget to download your free Compression 101 ebook. I have a link to that in the description. And with that, I'm Bobby Balo, the mixing and mastering engineer at Rayton Productions. I'll see you in another video.